Okay, the first thing is that all this tutorial, anything that we're sort of showing you, any of the documents we're looking at are available from this web page, which has been put in the chat. So we're going to be basically talking about, we've got the slides if you want to look at them later. We've got links to all the effectively specifications. We'll be dealing with that quite a bit. And we've got some browser-based workbenches to do the various examples and look at them and play around with and that sort of stuff. And there are links there, and they all open up in different, they'll open, if you click on one of those, it'll open up in a different tab and you can move it to a different window or whatever you want to do. One caution, we've discovered that under certain circumstances, Mac Safaris might, if you've got a dark mode, push the thing into dark mode. It works. I do most of my stuff under Chrome, and that seems to work quite well. So if you're finding yourself, I don't like the display, try either changing your preferences or shift to a different browser. Most of those workbenches work directly in the browser. One of them connects with a server, but all the rest you're not running with any server, so you can do as much as you like and you're not going to affect anybody else. Right. This is effectively, let me move that over there so you can, right. I'm going to be shifting backwards through a few different screens for the moment, so rather than stopping sharing and then changing screens, I'll just swap screens over. Basically, if there are any problems, shout at Juri. He'll put something in the chat and he'll try and alert me. Right, Qt4, what's in it for me? Qt4 is the successor to Qt3, query and transform. It's basically having another pass at XPath XQuery XSLT, and it's been going on for the last 3 years. And Juri and I are members of the community group, fairly active members. And basically over the next few hours, we're going to try and give you a picture of what's going on here. But the first thing is, this is still in progress. So not everything that we're talking about here will make it into the final cut. Most of it will actually, to be honest. And your mileage may vary in some places considerably. But it's to give you an idea of what we're trying to do. And you may wonder why we have this light bulb as the logo. It was designed by Bethan. And if you think about it, it's got a Q and a T and a 4. Just think about it for a second. Okay.
Actually an X in there as well.
Okay.
That's my remix.
Right. And we can get illuminated. The agenda, we're basically going to talk, I'm going to talk for a next sort of half hour and do some bits and pieces with you on an overview of the activities of this group, some summaries of the change specs, and then Juri is going to show you what is the big thing that's coming up that's actually changing now, which you'll start to understand what is the focus of the Qt4 main focus and what it's really doing now. Then we'll have there's a tea break, and then we'll come back. Juri will then talk about the changes to XPath, which are in the operators and in the type system mostly. I'll then talk about the changes to the functions and operators, mostly functions, of which there are about another 90. And we'll be basically, through both of those, you'll have examples that you can play around with and try. I'll explain more about how that's going to do when we get there. Then we'll have a short break, 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. There's nothing particularly on your program that's done this. And then we'll continue with a section on XQuery and on XSLT, and it's worthwhile saying most of the effort, probably 75 to 80% of the effort of the Qt3 has been on XPath and the functions and operators, and the rest is making things easier for various areas. And they'll do it XSLT, and then we'll get some questions and answers, and we'll probably be there somewhere around in the third hour, hopefully in the second half of the third hour. But there are bits where we'll just leave it, and all this information, these workbenches and the slides will be available for you to look at your leisure, as they say. Right. The community group, it's qt4cg.org. There's a link in that web page that links it all there. It's running as a community group under W3C. The intention was to sort of try and eventually get to something that might have been a recommendation, but it looks like, and if you talk to Norm, who is the effectively chair of this, well, he's certainly the scribe, it looks like we've got some interesting questions about whether or not new recommendations can ever be made. It started 3 years ago. We've had around weekly for an hour on a Zoom. We've been about 140 meetings so far. They're all well minuted. If you look on the web page, you'll find links to all the minutes and all that sort of stuff. We've got roughly about 12 active members. Meetings basically are usually at least 8 people, a maximum of 12, occasionally a little bit more. Currently we've processed more than 2,000 issues that have been tabled and discussed and chucked out, or basically adopted or amended or argued over for months, and pull requests that change the spec. And the main focus has been on working on the spec as the if you like, where everything's written down, and we're focusing on getting that sorted out. It's of the order of a year to 2 to final feedback and completion. This is a source of mild rivalry between the various members. We're definitely in the cutting it down phase now. Nothing big new is coming up except for what Juri will be telling you about. And we expect over the next year to basically stop and resolve everything, and then there'll be a period of effectively polishing up the specifications and dotting the I's and crossing the T's and everything else like that. Now, if you go to the web page, you'll find, there's a home page, and it basically has dashboards to show you the state of all the pull requests and all the issues that are currently open and being discussed. And there are definitely links to all the current specifications there, and they're kept up to date. If you read one of those, they're the current state of all the accepted modifications to the spec that has been done in each particular case. And to give you an idea, this is the motley crew that was there last week. Norm on the top left hand corner is obviously hard at work writing the minutes. Juri has decided that he's got something else to deal with. I'm otherwise distracted. Christian's looking like Christian always does, and Mike's in the middle. All the usual suspects, but it's typically, this has been pretty much and a few people, Joel Kowalewski and others, Reese Dunn effectively have been there pretty much all the way through. So this is a sort of group that's doing this for you. Okay, right. Now, the other thing that's really important is that the specs are extremely well annotated with where changes are. Before I go on further, I should say, if you are not fairly familiar with the 3.0 and the 3.1 level of the specifications of XPath, XQuery, XSLT, I'm sorry, we're not going to, I assume that. I'm not going to explain what 3 has got. If you were, you wouldn't be. If you didn't, you probably wouldn't be here. But the specs are very, very well annotated with where changes are. So if you know them, you can read through them, you can look at them, and you can basically get an idea of what's happening. In the tables of contents, basically, if there's a plus, it's something new. If there's a star, it's something that's been modified. If you get into the spec itself, anywhere there is a change at the level of a header, there will be a bar here which will tell you what has been changed. It'll discuss it. It will also give you pointers to the issues and the pull requests that were responsible for that change. So if you are interested in why something happened, there is effectively a link here, and we'll look at one of those a little bit later, that will allow you to go back and look at all the discussion as to why, what was there, why was it done, what was all the discussion about it. So by comparison, you can really get an idea of what is this thing in here, what's it trying to do, and I think you'll find that very, very useful. Right, what was the real focus on moving from 3.1 to 4.0? The big one is basically, by far, is the ability to process nested maps and arrays and node document node trees as easily as node trees themselves. What has happened is that basically with the JSON Sibboleth coming in from the outside has basically made maps and arrays much more common as structures inside the operational environment that we were dealing with for XQuery and XSLT and XPath. But the problem there was it was very maps and arrays were they were completely different in terms of how you dealt with them. And one of the biggest focuses has basically been dealing with that, saying, can we possibly make it possible to process those as equally well as we can node trees? And that's where we're getting at the moment. Let me let me check whether there's anything on chat I need to look at. Yeah, that's the thing I should tell you. I'm sorry. One of the other things I should say before we're going on this one is that one of the members of this team for the first couple of years was, of course, Michael Spearman McQueen, who made an enormous contribution. And of course, we all miss him as much as anybody else in this room. Right, to get back, the full processing of deep JSON was probably one of the targets, to be honest. And the second area was to basically add functions, additions to functions and syntax, improve the ease of use of this system, these languages, and at the same time try to have minimal backwards incompatibility. There are a few. They're mostly in very fine edge cases, like are you going to basically use div as a keyword, a name for a function, a name for an element you're going to make in XQuery, for example, that sort of stuff. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about XPath, and then functions and operators, then XQuery, and then XSLT. And for XPath, oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm not familiar with Juri wrote this slide set, and it's not a tool I'm very familiar with. The concept on the XPath was better supported, as I said, for nested maps and arrays. And the big thing has been a generalization of the node model that we used to form document nodes with elements and attributes and text nodes and all that sort of stuff, to a J node, an equivalent node for an array map entry. And that will allow us effectively to go to navigate in different directions. Now I'm going to switch over. Right, the issue here is we're used to basically navigating the tree with things like in XPath with axes that take us from one point in a tree to another point in the tree. With predication, we can control where or look for things relative to where we're trying to do. And in XSLT, we have the ability to write patterns which match particular cases of nodes that match certain conditions. In this particular case, an F which is a descendant of an A, for example. Unfortunately, if we start to have, move this over here, if we start to try that in effectively a case where we've got an array that contains a map that contains an array, we don't have the same, or we haven't got the same mechanisms of going up. We can go down a little more easily, but going up is much more difficult. And so what we've done is trying to generalize the mechanism where we have nodes which are either document nodes, which we call X nodes, or map array nodes, which we call J nodes, and the generalization, of course, is a G node. And doing the same thing effectively in terms of a match pattern, things like that. Right, now I'm going to go back. Okay. So the next bit on XPath is effectively something to deal with getting better types for maps effectively. You're used to a sort of notion of a map in this typical sense of a map of, let's say, name to address, or product number to price, that sort of stuff. But there's another form of map which is basically a structure where the keys are actually record name, structural element names, and the right-hand sides are the values of them, and we refer to those as records, but they're still maps effectively. And there's a lot for dealing with that. And the other one has been basically improving the ability to do pipelines of functions and expressions, and getting that going, including handling map-based and array-based elements. Juri will show you that. It's an area where you have to be fairly clear about what's happening at each stage, and you may have to find that, oh, why do I need to put brackets around this? But you'll see what we mean. Right. Okay, on functions and operators, I'll talk more about that. Let me think, what did I say? Okay, higher order functions, they were supposedly in 3.1 were optional. They're now effectively become so central that they're pretty much mandatory. We've taken the XPath file and binary modules, and we've basically adopted them and refined them. And they're in separate modules, and they are, implementation dependent about whether you support them, but we've sort of refined them out and adopted them. And I think, having been one of the people on the binary, I think that's quite a good idea. There are about 90 new functions. Most of them are, so about half of them are probably filling holes that should have been filled before. A good example is we had a head and tail of a sequence, but now we've got a foot and trunk. So basically, you can get things at the front of the sequence, and you can now get it at the back. About half of them are that sort of thing. You're saying, why wasn't that there? Quite a lot of the number of functions have been extended in two particular ways, which I'll talk about when I get to deal with that. And the whole thing has basically been trying to increase the consistency. And another place that's happened is a lot of the options for these functions in terms of third argument, or last argument, option argument, are now basically defined as records with given key names for the particular pieces. But I'll come back to that a bit later. Right, where are you? For XQuery and XSLT, well, we'll come and talk. Oh, hang on, XQuery. I probably have to. I'll basically let Juri handle this one, which should say we're like Tweedledum and Tweedledee. No, yeah, I don't do any XQuery. Juri doesn't do any XSLT, so we have to. But we all do XPath. Well, he does very little XSLT, and I do no XQuery. And then we'll get on to XSLT. What did I say about that one? In the XSLT, it's basically mostly about syntactic additions to make style sheets cleaner, better declaration of types, better support for maps and arrays, including matching. And I'll come back to later. We've not done anything much more on streaming support. In fact, we've taken it out as a separate part of the specification. Now, before I hand over to Juri to carry on, I'm going to basically give you a picture of, let me go back to here. Okay, I said basically if you wanted to, you can get to, let's go and have a look at one of these examples. And I want to just take you through to show you what happens. These all the examples are in a very similar fiddle. They're all the ones for XPath and the functions and operators and XQuery are all effectively the same one with a different input. And the XSLT one is slightly different. What you'll find is effectively a drop-down set of different arguments, different samples to try. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to try this one. I know this one much better. Right. So in this, you'll have an ability to, for example, pick up an example, and you'll be able to run it. In this particular case, it will tell you there are no samples, inputs needed for this particular one, and you can run it, and you will get a result down here. And what's happening here is this is actually a front end to the base X fiddle that does XPath 4 and XQuery 4 stuff. And thanks to Christian and his team, colleagues, Christian Grün and his team, colleagues, for allowing us to attach that server. And you can basically edit things in here. You will run it. You can choose input files and that sort of stuff. You can choose files from the file system if you want to. You can even drag and drop. Let me get rid of that one for the moment. Okay. You can drag and drop. So, for example, I can take. Where we go? Here we are. Let's take an example. I could take this and I can drag it straight onto there. So one of the possibilities, if you want to, you can actually take this, put it into your editor, and then just drag them back on top of here and try things out. If there is a problem, like here for example, we've got a problem, there will be a statement of what that problem here is, and you'll be able to edit this. There'll be some clues inside it, you can see what happens. And you may have a case where you've got different input files. It will tell you that you can we have a drop-down box to those files. Right. If there's an error, like if I run this one, it will say it will tell you then, because basically it's expecting a function here, and all it's got is a comment, which is where you've got to do the exercise. Okay. There's a help, rudimentary help, and an about, and you'll get the answers down in the result area. Okay. Now, I think that's probably enough to be. Oh, yes, there's even a picture here to do it. So the code will be here, the input will be here. You'll get effectively a drop down. You'll, on at least on Chrome, you'll get effectively red for the examples. Some of the examples are not problems. You can just have a look at them and you'll try it and see what you want to do. Okay, so I'm now going to stop screen sharing and pass over to Juri.
Okay, I hope you can see it now. Yes. So actually, John already spoiled you a little. I don't know if you noticed, but there's one late-breaking change, and the ones that were listening to Balisage or attend Balisage already know about this. But in the beginning, there was no. So we always just thought about what is a node. Node could be an attribute, could be a processing instruction, could be an element. But there's things that we now have to generalize, and you already saw something about J nodes, but what you previously knew as nodes are now known as X nodes. So that's everything that is coming from the XML word is now an X node instead of a node. And to have as minimal breaking changes as we could, so this is all based on the work of Michael K, obviously. So he generalized them to G nodes, which is a generalized node. And X nodes are now part of this family. And now we have J nodes as well. J nodes are everything in structured data, so maps and arrays are J nodes. And in order for that to work, a lot of things had to be there first. So we had a lot of different approaches, or actually Michael had several approaches, which all of them really did not work out. They weren't perfect. There was a small little change that led to us being able to have a very nice solution now. And that is that we have ordered maps in XQuery 4 now. It's weird, come to think of it, that this orderedness of maps by default is the reason why you can do a lot of other things, which allows us, okay, yeah, obviously if you have J nodes and X nodes, in G nodes, you also have those as trees, G trees, X trees, and J trees, sorry. But these J nodes in a structured map and array structure, as you would get from parsing a JSON document, for instance, which is the typical thing that you want to do, is the thing that was missing was the parent access. So if I can know, okay, this is the parent of my node or element in the tree structure, then I can do all the other accesses. So I can do sibling queries. I can do go drill down and up the tree, and search for all occurrences of a specific item. So this is what a JNode now has as a property. It has a parent. Then it has a content, which is all the thing that's inside of them. So for instance, for an array, that will be all its members. For a map, it would be all its key value pairs. Yeah. And the selector is now the path to that item or that node in the tree. So actually, I was wondering why it's called selector. I have to maybe query that or ask. I would have called it path myself, but maybe there's likely a reason why Michael chose to use selector instead. And one of the reasons might be that we also need a separate thing as a fourth property that is called position, and that is if we have a mixed item there. So if, for instance, you can construct in XQuery, you can construct a map that has an entry that has a sequence. And in that sequence, there could be one atomic value and an array. And for that special case, we need to be able to address the first thing, like the content at position 1 in that sequence. And this is the specialty that is only there to handle edge cases at the moment. There is a world where we could get rid of that, maybe. Well, that would be interesting. But at the moment, it's very important to have it so that we definitely can address all the things in there. I'm doing very well on time, so I think we will do something else before. But let me show you what this means in practice. In order to form a J tree, you will call this function, or this is one way to get to a J tree. A J tree has always a root node at its at the beginning, always one, and this is either a map or an array, but it will not have a parent, and this is how you will know. Okay, this is the root of your J tree. To get to a JNode's content, you will have to call this function JNode content. So this is important to remember. That's very different from, or you could maybe refer it to /text or /string or /data. This also would be interesting to see if we could generalize it to /data, but it's not for today. This is the current. I'm currently explaining you the status quo. Please keep in mind that as John already showed, most of the things are now in a relatively stable state, but this is currently what we're working on actively. Yeah. So yeah, JNode selector does what you would expect. You get the selector back and JNode position as well. So if you need those, they are there, and there are use cases for them, for you to call them as well. So here's one example what you would be able to do now. As I said, these were all generalized, which also means that we now can do path expressions, steps, like normal. And I thought when I saw this, my head exploded. I was like, oh, wow. Because there's all of the things that the power of paths that we have already, or steps in there. So do you understand what this does? Yeah. Sorry? The first line is a tree, yes. Yes, exactly. The first line is the tree, because that is actually, if you have a path expression on the left-hand side, then the J tree call is actually done implicitly, so by the language. You don't have to do it yourself. Yeah, it wraps it now. We have a root node that is the one array that we have there, and it has the content that is ABC, and then we can select any first element that is in there, and then we can, because we are then down in the member and atomic, we can all go up again and then select the last item and then get the string value of it.
So,
There's a question, sorry?
so you said elements.
Yeah,
You said
when I heard it.
JNode's the element is map or array.
Yes, maps or arrays.
No,
What the question was, sorry, I have to repeat it first. Forgot.
You said that /star selects the first element.
Oh, sorry.
In XPath, star selects an XML element. Now it selects a map or
JNode.
JNode, which is a map or an array.
No, an item in there as well. Yeah. Remember.
What's the difference with
It's not really different if you think about it. Yeah. So the question was /star in XQuery was, or in XPath was selecting elements, and now it does something different. And I would say no, /star always selected all nodes, all kinds of nodes. Okay. Okay, I'm schooled here. Perfect. Okay. But yeah, this does select children.
Like nodes in the XML one because it didn't before.
No, we did not change a thing in this. We try to keep the
Element that
yeah, children. I think is the wording that is best.
children with their element.
No, A would be the selection of the first thing.
Your
Okay.
second line,
Yeah, I'm
what
just trying to
does
understand.
flash?
Yeah, so it's selecting children.
XML behavior hasn't changed.
No, definitely
You
not.
just added in extra stuff, but I'm not going to.
The question, yeah, sorry, for you for you in the
Please keep repeating the question.
yeah. So the question was, has the behavior changed when it comes to X trees? And it hasn't. Yeah. But now with this power, we can do something in a tree as this. We can select all languages at any position, regardless of the complexity of the structure, which I think is phenomenal. And I think whatever pains we will still have to figure out in edge cases, it's worthwhile. Yeah. But in order to get to the values of that, we still call JNode content, but we can, as it works on context elements, you can call it as a pass step. But you can also do it in a different way. There's a question.
Yeah, I noticed that you are addressing strings as the map keys without putting the string in the JPath expression. You've got languages in the expression, but languages is quoted as a string
Yes.
key value.
So the question was, why am I addressing languages unquoted? And the reason is because that's the key of the, and this is kind of the name of the element, so to say. Yeah, that's true. No, you can't, but there is a way, a get function to do all the other weird things that I'm currently leaving out, as we can't show them you in practice, but there is ways to use expanded versions of all these, which allow you to retrieve all the specialties that you want, and at all positions. And this will return a sequence of JNodes that you then have to get the values out of it. So think of it as a small little J node. J, yes. And yeah, as I said, you can then run the selector on it, JNode selector, JNode position, and JNode content. Okay. So yeah, this is it. Basically, in comparison, X nodes, as we know them, an element with an attribute value. Text, there's more to it, obviously, but I have left them out. I think you can figure out that there's comments. Yeah, but JNodes do not have comments. As we know, JSON doesn't have comments. I don't know why, but never made it to spec. Let's see.
You said you can make a J tree of an array or a map, but what about an atomic value? Because you can, an atomic value is a valid JSON.
Well, it's certainly a G node, so a generalized node. Is it a J node? Interesting question. Since we're currently talking about theory here, I would say you should be. But no, you can't, because it needs to be a function element. So it needs to be either a map or array. It has to be. The question was if I can, I don't know if that made it through, sorry. If I can create a J node out of a string. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there is no wrapping item around it. So it would be like, can you form an X tree out of a text node? Can you? Not really. There is a root missing, right? Yeah. There's another question. Oh, there's lots of questions. Okay, now we have still ample time.
There are two questions. Is there a specific use of arrows in JNode? And second question, did you add new axes
Mhm.
like descendant, sister, or child?
Mhm. Okay, the question, yes. Thank you for reminding me. So the question was, is there any specific use of the at symbol? And to answer that first, no, there is not. So the at symbol has no use when it comes to J nodes. It is also just a shorthand for attribute, right? So there is no attributes in J nodes. Second question was,
New axes.
are there any specific new axes that are specific to J nodes? No, there aren't. More on axes later on. So there are new axes, but they are to all of them, like apply to G nodes. Okay. Go ahead. Martin has a question as well.
Mix them. So if I take that two in your JNode example, scratch it and throw the node, XML node inside of the JNode.
Mhm.
And then start query something like a / node. We'll find it.
Should be. I think so. That should be our goal, right? The question was, how about mixed trees? And I think it's a valid question, and I will certainly be fighting for this to be a normal thing. And I think it is even already. I mean, we're currently still talking about theory. I don't know how far the implementation has gone from Saxonica so far. I couldn't try it yet, so I can't say. But I don't see a point why it shouldn't work. Certainly, what you can't do is inside of an X tree, you cannot have J trees because those would just be strings, right? Yeah. But well, maybe interesting. It's still an interesting field. You still want to say something? Okay, Adam.
So when we did XQuery 3.1, one of the use cases for adding maps and arrays to the language was interoperability with JSON. Is that still a use case 4.0?
Yeah, sure. Even more. The question was the reason why maps and arrays were added to XQuery 3.1 was to allow interoperability with JSON. Yeah, and certainly this has now been much better.
I ask is because I'm just getting my head around this now, but what I can see, this is broken interoperability. So what I mean by that is that in JSON, maps are unordered. So if I parse some JSON using parse JSON in XPath, it's going to give me an ordered map. Yep.
So the question was, when JSON is now parsed, since we now have ordered maps by default, that will then mean that the parse result is also ordered. Yes.
I don't know my XPath to access these things in the map, and I know that B comes after A in the map, right? I can use sibling relationships.
Correct.
Okay,
So, but let me repeat that. So can sibling relationships be used now in that on that ordered map? Yes, you can.
Then the problem that I see comes from I parse my JSON again, and my ordered map is now in a different order, and my code is broken.
So, the question now is, if I parse that JSON, then it will be in a different order. It cannot.
Well,
If it's the same document, it cannot.
that's not true, is it? Because two JSON documents, where
Two
the maps
JSON
are in
documents.
different orders, are still equivalent JSON. Because if JSON maps are unordered.
All depends.
So if I have an API, for example, let me just extend this. If I have a web API that I'm calling from a server that produces a JSON response, there's no guarantee calling it twice that the maps will be in the same order. So when I run that through my XQuery code, which is expecting a certain sibling order, my code breaks the second time because the input data is in a different order, even though semantically it's exactly the same JSON document.
Okay, the question now is, if a web API produces a JSON document with the same contents but in a different order, then you cannot use sibling relationships, because then these would produce different results. Did I get that right? Okay, yeah, that might be true, but then you shouldn't. Then you should use other selectors. I don't see how that would.
I have two JSON documents that are semantically the same. And my code will do different things depending on which one I parse, even though they're the same data.
Only if you treat it that way.
Yes.
I mean, there is no other way to treat it. The JSON spec says maps are an order.
There are comments of Nor on the chat about this.
Anyway, something to think about. It's just
Yes. We should take some of the discussion to our longer break now. This was the plan all along, which why we put that controversial topic here. I mean, there will likely be more controversial topics, but this was certainly the one that was most controversial. Oh, no, it's fine. There's another question.
Can you stop using question?
I cannot stop repeating the questions, if that's the question. So what's next? A break. I think, can we do that a little earlier? Otherwise, we could also familiarize before we do the break that everybody now has the fiddle open, because we will need this in the next 2 hours that we are together still. And believe me, we asked for 4. But we only got 3. So this will be tight.
Maybe show how.
Yeah. The fiddle is,
For example, thing.
yeah, so you got here, wow. Well, it shows on my screen. It should be in there. So, oh, I have an echo. How did I produce that one? This will be the page that we will be looking at every once in a while. So the slides will continue. There will be a lot of slides. So mine only 70-ish. And then there's also the part from John. But every once in a while, just to keep you awake, there will be a small little thing to try out. As John already mentioned, the fiddle from Base X is wonderful to try out new features in XQuery 4. There's not everything in there. If you're interested, there is. Will this switch now? Okay. Here at this link, I mean, I pasted the link to the slides already. You should also be able to access this. There is described what is all supported and what not. Most of it is already supported. So, and here's the link to the fiddle of Base X itself, which also now has syntax highlighting, as we learned yesterday, which is really cool. But we will work in this one here. You see a schematic representation of that. That is here. So we will start, after the break, we'll start with XPath here. And then there's a number of things to look at. You can select any of those, but we will come to that then later. So this will be the modus operandi for the next 2 hours. Will be switching between some sort of slides and you.
The materials on the declarative.
Yes. Will these be the same slides as the one that are linked in the material? And if it's yes and no. So John has prepared his slides, and every time I tend to speak here, I have new challenges, or I tend to love challenges, and these hybrid presentations are really fun. John, did I forget anything really important in the last 4 minutes that we have in this part?
No, I don't think so. I think people just have to be just aware that everything's in flux, and we're trying to give you some flavour of what these things look like. Particularly in the case of the XSLT stuff, it's an approximate equivalent. Don't take it as gospel, but it'll give you a flavour of what sort of things that are going on. And I think we've probably got enough time, and we'll push our way through XPath and XPath the functions and query and XSLT, and you'll get a flavour for it. And I think that's all we're really trying to get an idea across to you, and then point you in the direction of the specs, because that's where the real action takes place. Thank you.
So one last thing, because we will not have enough time to do all of those exercises likely. These will stay online, and you can do them. If we have to skip them because of time, then you can do them on your own. And obviously we will stay around, and you can ask us questions, and either Declarative XML Slack or on Slack or anywhere else to find us. Yeah. Short break. 15 minutes only, not half an hour, 15 minutes. John?